Good morning. Christianity can make us good, kind, considerate, but it should also make us strong and firm for what we believe, for what we know to be right, to be able to stand on our own feet between us, Jesus Christ, and God. Now, Watchtower wants to take away that strength and make us reliant upon them as to what we should or shouldn't be doing. Now, I'm sure you know of many examples where they've imposed their conscience onto us. They've told women who have been abused that they can't leave their husbands. I remember them telling one woman that she had to leave her husband, even though she didn't want to and she had nowhere to go. Now, what really prompted this video was Watchtower's stance on military service. Now, some countries impose military service on young people, but they take into account that some people are conscientious objectors, and so they provide a civilian service for those people. Now, Watchtower's policy, which wasn't scriptural, was this: that it's a substitute work and therefore it's an equivalent of military service, so it's not allowed. Now, Christians won't engage in war, but the scriptures have a lot to say about obeying the government. Matthew 5 and verse 41, Jesus said, "If anyone under authority impresses you into service for a mile, go with him 2 miles. Go overboard in trying to do what the government asks us to do." Titus says, "Be obedient to the governments and authorities." Now, eventually, Watchtower came to realise that civilian service was in obedience to the governments. But they didn't change their previous policy, and it was a political decision, not a religious one, because what had happened was that because of the previous policy, many young people had gone to prison because they refused to do even the civilian service. And Watchtower's viewpoint was, well, if we change it now, we're going to undermine our authority, and also those people who went to prison would be disgruntled, and rightly so. So they carried on with this awful policy and put more people into prison. Now, some people would have obeyed their own consciences and they would have done civilian service. And then they would have been disfellowshipped, not because it was wrong, but because they disobeyed the governing body. I am so ashamed of Watchtower. If they'd looked at the Bible in the first place, this problem would not have arisen. They are very keen on man-made policies. Anyway, let's get over that and let's have a look at conscience a moment. There are various states of conscience. Everybody has one, to some extent or another. You can have a good conscience, a seared conscience, or a weak conscience. Now, a weak conscience is probably not what you think it is. A seared conscience is a conscience that will let you do anything. It will let you murder and steal without bothering you one little bit. A weak conscience will go to the other extreme and won't let you do anything without troubling you. You go to sleep at night worrying, oh, I did this, that and the other, and I probably shouldn't have done. Now, we don't want either of those consciences, but how do we get a good conscience? Well, there's only one way, and it's in 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 21. Apparently, this verse is very difficult to translate. First of all, we are making an appeal or a request. Now, that's a fervent appeal to somebody that we know and love very well. We're not appealing to a stranger. Now, it's a request either from or for a good conscience. And if you have any thoughts on that, you might like to put them in the comments. Either way, baptism saves us and gives us a good conscience. How? Well, it's through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. We acknowledge that he has died for our sins. All our past sins have been forgiven, they've been wiped out. We now have a good conscience. Now, we don't want to be blasé about sin, because if we do sin quite badly, we can go to the person who's been offended, we can apologise, and then we can go to God on the basis of Jesus' sacrifice and ask for forgiveness. We can be given forgiveness, and our conscience is now clear or good. We don't want to keep on worrying about it. Now, the Apostle Paul had a lot to say about a weak conscience, but we'll deal with that another time. I'll put the references below. So, Jesus' death and resurrection has given us a good conscience. We are strong and firm in how we live, how we behave, and in our relationship with Jesus Christ and our dear Father. Don't let anybody dictate to us how we should or shouldn't be living apart from Jesus Christ. And on the other hand, of course, we don't want to impose our consciences onto somebody else. This makes us very reasonable people, still firm for what is right. So I'll leave you in the very good and kind care of our dear Father, and thank you for watching.